Hello all. Today we will set up an Exchange test environment, and the test environment will have two Exchange 2016 VMs in Azure. The Exchange servers will be in a DAG, you know, in a database availability group, and the VMs will also be publicly load balanced for the Exchange client access traffic. The lab will have one DC on a Windows Server 2019 core. The lab will have two Exchange 2016 CU14 servers in a DAG, and the VM will be on Windows Server 2016. As I mentioned earlier, we will also have a public load balancer, the Azure public load balancer for the client access traffic. We will also import public certificate and configure Exchange URLs. Detailed steps for this lab are available at the address given on the screen. You can keep that page open in your browser, and it will be easier for you to go through the lab. So let's get started. First, we need to connect to Azure PowerShell. To do that, we need to install the AZ module. I already have it installed on my machine, so I will not install it again. Then we need to run connect-az account. As usual, it will ask for the admin credentials. So let me type in that. All right, we are connected to our Azure environment. So first we will set up a new resource group. I'm just naming it as resource group, and I will specify West US as the location. Then we will just run new hyphen easy resource group to set up the resource group. Then we will set up a new storage account. We will run new hyphen easy storage account. Please notice the SKU name as standard underscore LRS. This is lab, so it's okay for us. Then we will set up a new subnet for the lab. The address prefix is 10.0.0.0/24. Then, based on this subnet, we will set up a virtual network for our lab. Address suffix is 10.0.0.0/16, and please note the DNS server as 10.0.0.4. That will be our DC, and it will work as the DNS server for our virtual network. Then we will set up security rules and security group. The first rule is for the RDP. The first rule will allow the RDP from internet to any VM in our virtual network. It is okay for a lab. And for our production environment, it is recommended to set up a VPN for the RDP. But for a lab, it's okay. The second rule is for the Exchange HTTPS traffic, and it will allow the HTTPS traffic from internet to the public load balancer. Please note the destination address prefix. It is set up as Azure load balancer, so uh, that rule will direct the HTTPS traffic from internet to the public load balancer we are going to set up for the Exchange VMs. Then we will set up a new security group and include these security rules in the security group. Now we will assign this security group to the virtual network we have set up, so that uh, the security group can allow RDP and HTTPS traffic to our VMs, which will be in the virtual network. So first we are saving the configuration in virtual network and network security group variables, and then we will use those variables to update the virtual network. Alright, we will finally run set-easy virtual network to update the configuration. Now we will start setting up the VMs. The first VM is the DC. For the DC, first we will set up an availability set. I will not discuss an availability set here, but you can find enough documentation on that. Then we will create a new public IP for our DC, and we will use that public IP to RDP to the DC virtual machine. Next thing is we will create a new NIC and assign the public IP to that NIC. Also, please note the private IP address of the NIC. It is 10.0.0.4. As I mentioned earlier, we will use the DC as the DNS server for our Azure virtual network. And now we will set up the VM. We are specifying the size for the VM. For the DC, I'm specifying standard underscore B1S. That is sufficient for us. Then we will set up an OS disk for the VM. Then we will save the credentials, the admin credentials, in a variable. Now we are specifying the operating system for the VM. We are specifying Windows Server 2019 Data Center Server Core as the image for this VM. We will use Server Core for the DC. It's sufficient for us. Then we are adding the NIC to the VM. And finally, we will run new-easy VM to finish the VM setup. It will take a while to finish the setup, so let me pause the video here. So the DC is set up. Now we will retrieve the public IP address of the VM so that we can use that public IP address to RDP to it. So we have got the public IP. So let's RDP to the VM. Let me update the public IP address. Okay, let me update the admin credentials. All right, I should be able to access the DC now. So now we will install Active Directory and DNS roles on this VM. No, it is a server core machine, so we will use Windows PowerShell to install these roles. Yeah, let me switch to PowerShell first. Let me copy it again. Okay. It will take some time. Okay, it's done now. Now we will set up the first forest in the environment. It is hybrid-365.com. It is asking for the safe mode admin password. So let me do that. It will again take some time. So let me pause the video here. I will come back once it is done. It is done. So now we will start setting up the Exchange VMs. First, we will set up an availability set for both VMs. We need to use the same availability set for both VMs. Now we will start setting up the first VM. Please note the size. I'm using B4MS as the size for this VM. I found it cost effective. So, for the lab, I think you can also use it. I guess it provides 16 GB of RAM and enough disk space. So it is okay for us. Then I will set up a new NIC for the VM. Its private IP address will be 0.5. Then we will set up an OS disk. Now we will start setting up a data disk for the Exchange VM. Size of the disk is 20 GB. It's sufficient for us for the lab. The disk has been set up, so we will attach it to the VM. Then we are specifying Windows as the operating system of the VM. We will also specify credentials by running set-az VM operating system. And then we are going to have 2016 data center on this VM. We are adding the NIC to the VM, and then finally we will run new-az VM to finish setting up the VM. It will take a while to set up this VM. Let me pause the video here. Okay, the first Exchange VM is set up. Now in the same manner, we will set up the second VM as well for the Exchange. So that is also done by me. Now we will start setting up the public load balancer for the Exchange VMs. First, I will create a public IP address for the public load balancer. Then we are creating a front-end IP configuration. Now to the front end, we are assigning the public IP address. Then we will set up the backend address pool. Next thing is the health probe. Please note that I'm using TCP port 443 for the health probe because the load balancer is for the Exchange HTTPS traffic. So the health probe needs to match with the same port number. So it needs to have TCP port 443 only. It will not work if you specify port 80. Then we need to set up the load balancer rule. It is for the HTTPS traffic. Then we will set up two NAT rules. Now these two NAT rules will allow us to RDP to the Exchange VMs through the public IP of the public load balancer. Please note the front-end port for the first rule is 3390 and 3391 for the second rule. So while RDPing, we need to use those ports. Then it will allow us to RDP to the Exchange VMs. Finally, we will set up the load balancer with all these configurations: front-end IP configuration, back-end address pool, load balancer rules, health probe, inbound NAT rules. Uh, We will use all this configuration and set up the load balancer. Then we need to add both Exchange NICs to the backend configuration of the public load balancer. We are running set-az network interface to update the NIC as well. Finally, we will run set-az load balancer to update the load balancer with the updated backend address pool. Now we will retrieve public IP address of the load balancer so that we can use it to RDP to the Exchange VMs. Please note the port number, it is 3390. For the second VM, it will be 3391. All right, we are able to RDP. Now we will finish setting up the data disks. If you remember, we have added data disk to both Exchange VMs so that we can use that disk for the database and log files. We will use Windows PowerShell only to initialize and format those disks. We will do it for both VMs. Also, please note that I am specifying REFS as the file system for these new volumes, as we are going to have database and log files on these disks. Let me do it for the second VM as well. Let me update my script as well. All right, then we will install Windows prerequisites on both VMs. It takes a while. So I have already done it on both machines. Then we need to install some other prerequisites. I have already done it on both VMs. I have already downloaded the Exchange setup on both VMs. So let me mount it. Let me run the setup now. Exchange setup has been mounted to G drive, so I'm running it against the G drive. As you already know, the Exchange setup will take a while, so let me pause the video here. Alright, Exchange has been installed. I have installed it on both VMs, so we are good here. Let me restart the VM. Now we will import a public certificate on both VMs. I'm using a free public certificate from sslforfree.com. For the lab, and you can also use it. Not sure whether it is recommended for production environment though. I had already copied the certificate on the desktop, so I'm running these commandlets to import that certificate on both VMs. Now we need to update the services for this new certificate. We will assign POP, IMAP, SMTP, and IS to this new certificate. However, please note that later, let me run these commandlets, this commandlet first quickly. Now you will note that there is a warning regarding POP and IMAP. So it appears that we cannot use the wildcard certificate POP for POP and IMAP. But for this lab, I think it's okay because we are not going to test, or at least I'm not going to test POP and IMAP with this lab. Then we will configure external URL for the virtual directories. We will set it up as mail.hybrid-365.com. As we are using only a public load balancer, I'm going to update only external hostname and external URL. But you can also set up internal load balancer and update those URLs as well. But as of now, I will update only external URL. First, let's see the existing URLs. So as this is a fresh installation, you can see that internal and external URLs are not updated. So we will run these commandlets to update the external URL, only external URL as of now, to mail.hybrid-365.com. I have saved these commandlets in a simple PowerShell script on the machine so that it is easier to run it. So let me run it. Alright, it is still retrieving the URLs. Alright, let me run the second script. It will update the external URL and external hostname for Outlook Anywhere. You are seeing an error message that external URL cannot be resolved because we don't have any internal DNS record for the external URL. So we are getting the error message. right, the URLs have been set up. Let's run get-exchange URLs script again to just verify those URLs. Now we can see that the URLs have been updated to mail.hybrid-365.com, and it will update external hostname for Outlook Anywhere as well to mail.hybrid-365.com. So we are done here. Now we will try to access https://mail.hybrid-365.com/ova from an external machine to just make sure that the public load balancer is working as expected and the URL has also been set up properly. So it worked. I'm accessing the URL from an external machine. It is not connected to Azure network. So it is working fine. So the load balancer is set up properly and it is working as expected. Now the last part is setting up a tag. We will set up a tag including both Exchange VMs. It is a two-member tag, so we need to have a witness server. And for this lab, we are going to use DC as the witness server. It is not recommended for production, but for this lab, it's okay. And to use DC as the witness server, we need to make certain changes. So let's do it. Let's save the DC in a variable. Yeah, let's change to PowerShell quickly. We are saving the DC object in a variable so that we can use in the PowerShell commandlets. We need to add the DC to the Exchange Trusted Subsystem group. So let's do it. We are doing it so that we can use it as a witness server. Then we need to add the Exchange Trusted Subsystem to the administrators group. And it will add the Exchange Trusted Subsystem to the domain administrators group because we are doing it on a DC. And it is against the security policy. So that's why it is not recommended to follow these steps in a production environment. Then let's rename the databases so that we can use those databases in a tag. Let's get their name. These are the initial databases which come with the Exchange setup. And I'm just renaming them to something simple like EX1 database 1 and EX2 database 1. All right, it's done. So now we will move these databases to the data disk, which we had set up earlier. We need to do it so that the database has the same path on both VMs. Then only we will be able to use that database in our DAG. So we will run move-database path to move both databases. We are not worried about the database getting dismounted because this is the initial database. All right, so it is done. Now we will set up a new DAG. We are naming it as DAG only. Then we will add both Exchange servers to the DAG. Yeah, it will set up Windows failover clustering component on both VMs. It will take a while, so let me pause here. All right, it's done. Now let's add database copy for both databases. So we will run add hyphen mailbox database copy for both databases. Let's do it for the second database as well. Now we will run get hyphen. Oh, before that, we need to restart the information store service on both machines. All right, it's done. So let's move ahead. Let's verify the back configuration. Yeah, we can see two copies for the database. So the DAG has been set up properly. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel to get notified on future videos and provide your feedback. Thanks.